turn is Anaconda and all the threats in the world, the Brutes aren't enough to beat that. And you can still shut down the Kurtrus as the secondary win condition. So even though we're not seeing the Druid just yet, I expect it to be a pivotal player in the series as a whole.
I agree. I think that Druid was a risky bring this week, but overall a clever bring. It's going to struggle against Alan should che0nsu get there, but I think given the overall field, given you're playing against a wide range of players rather than just one opponent, it's unlikely that there's going to be that much aggro, and you can kind of hope that the rest of the players will beat them down before you face off against them. And if Priest is the only premier aggro deck and you can ban it away, Druid all of a sudden looks pretty strong. I think his build is decent against Rogue, decent against the Delete Lock, and also has a decent amount of game versus the Demon Hunter as well. But to start things off here, a matchup that I've been very interested in over the past couple days, been exploring all kinds of different lines as the OTK or hybrid Demon Hunter. But when you're up against a hand like this from che0nsu, and you have a pretty mediocre hand like this for Posesi, it doesn't feel like you're in all too good of a spot, I will say.
Yeah, the keep from che0nsu was great. He has the Gandling and the opening curve to support it, and that curve, including Neophyte, is the 1-2 punch versus che0nsu. I was a bit curious that Posesi just completely held off on studies. A lot of the time you might play that when you have the spare mana, even though you're not necessarily going to play what you get off from it, but maybe Posesi thinking that this Fellscream Blast in the middle of his hand is the kicker. He doesn't want to just dump that, right? And it's the possibility that whatever he got from the studies could be locked in. The Fellscream's super important to get big amounts of healing here. I don't feel like you can throw that away willy-nilly just to get the 3 healing. You would much rather save it to go with a Moarg or a Guild Trader and recoup all of the damage you're sure to take in the early game.
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of holding off studies on 2 most of the time. Like, you can try and hit I-Beam if you really, really need it, but I don't think it was necessary there. And I would rather take the 23% chance to hit Spectral Sight on turn 3, which can then, of course, be used with the tradable in hand to complete the first layer of quest. Once Neophyte comes down, though, of course, that all just goes out the window.
Yeah, and so this turn, is it just going to be Persistent Peddler traded away, or just hold that as the guaranteed quest completer with the acrobatics on the next turn? It could even be a tempo Moarg here, but versus a Neophyte, I think Wriggling Horror is a little bit too scary, and he's apparently committing to holding the Moarg with the Fellscream.
Yeah, I actually like this line of going for just hero power pass, because this gives you the highest chance of completing quest next turn. You have it guaranteed with just acrobatics trade. And if they'd done something less powerful than this, I would maybe advocate going for a Moarg clear turn. With Gandling now, you need to accrue something very powerful. What you have in hand is not currently good enough. So I think this is actually an ignore the board and go for quest completion turn.
And when you say something powerful enough, it is pretty much specifically Immolation or in a situation versus Brutes, right? Versus Gandling, because I don't think you can realistically get that many Brutes online at this point in the game where he's already spent a lot of mana on card draw. So yeah, with that 1-cost Moarg, now he does have access to the Immolation Aura for 9 damage, right? With both Moargs, which is enough to get past Gandling.
Well, for 5 damage, sorry, right? Because it blows up the Moargs off the first hit, unless you can buff them.
Yeah, that's my mistake. So that means Immo is not even that good. I mean, it'll keep him alive, but it's not even killing the Gandling.
He is going to need something a little bit extra. If he can reduce it and then go with a Fellscream Blast as well, he can make some stuff happen. And even here, to be fair, he has double Moarg Fellscream Blast to clear off all the failed students, or I guess maybe the Attendant as well, and then buy himself another turn to try and clear next turn.
Yeah. Actually, if he did have Immo here, he could go Moarg Fellscream and then Immo and then kill the Gandling with the hero power, right? Or is that still short?
True. No, yeah, that would work, right? Yeah.
Since that's not available, he's going to have to go searching for something with the studies. He will still have mana to go Moarg Fellscream after the fact.
Right. The problem is he can't actually pick anything up that helps him. I-Beam obviously would cost 1, which means you can't go double Moarg Fellscream. Kurtrus is a little short. He's just digging. I think he's going for a brute plan here, which I can understand. The Moarg's very possibly a cleanup afterwards, and if he can get himself a 0 mana philosophy as well, this is salvageable, maybe.
But he would need 3 brutes to stay alive, right? 2, he's still dead on board. I don't think it's realistic enough, so he's gonna go for the Moarg game plan. Turn away everything on the right. Leaving che0nsu with 12 damage. Sorry, 7. Yeah, 12 plus ping, 15. Not quite there yet, but the Moargs themselves on board are quite annoying, and che0nsu has very expensive minions to play into a Gandling, so I expect he actually trades away the Merchant.
Yeah, it does feel that way, doesn't it? You can then always just go Cool Tyran plus hero power, at the very least, to keep the, I suppose, the Neophyte alive. Although I guess that's probably not trading in, so maybe you just keep the Gandling as healthy as possible, just by buffing it up even further.
Yeah, I kind of like buff Gandling, trade Gandling, and then 2-4 ping in Moarg. Yeah. You only push 4 damage with a Neophyte face, but Posesi has telegraphed basically that he doesn't have an answer to Gandling, and with an additional 4-4 on board, che0nsu still sets up counter-lethal the next turn. You can make the argument that with having seen 2 Moargs, Gandling at 5 health is still pretty safe, so maybe you put the buff on the Kulturan instead. But he's going in the other direction with taking the Raise Dead for additional minions here.
Ooh, Tour Guide for 0 mana hero power. Okay, that gets 2 students on board and allows him to still clear the board. That worked out pretty well.
Yeah, he misses on a buff here, but gets an extra 4-4.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure which out che0nsu's most worried about, but I'd be inclined to play around, I guess, Guild Trader or Immolation Aura as the only big one here, right?
All right, Guild Trader is actually a surprisingly decent draw, because if you can get the discount on it plus a, well, plus pretty much as we were talking about exactly the Immolation Aura, then maybe we're talking, but again, that's not it. It's 1 mana off being able to play it with the Fellscream Blast, so he does just have to rely on the Brutes after probably trading away the Guild Trader, actually, in order to try and find a Philosophy.
Yeah, Sigil Runner.
Okay.
That gets the other Brute down to 0. I mean, I feel like he ends up playing these Acrobatics cards also just to get closer and closer to any other Philosophy. But using the second Fellscream like that for not significant healing hurts.
Yeah, he's able to take out the Attendant though, which is a very big deal in its own right.
True. All about surviving for Posesi here.
Oh, trading again. He really wants that Philosophy.
Oh my god!
That's the draw. Massive Brutes coming down now. 3 of them. 6, 7, 7, 8, 7, 8. Tough to chew through now for che0nsu.
Yeah, he only has access to killing 2 of them on board. But he can build a ton more 4-4s this turn.
True. Yeah, I think the refill is still probably strong enough. It's just this Gandling, and the Divine Shield is so big.
So a 4-4 and a 3-1 go in a 6-7. And then Divine Shielded Gandling plus the other 4-4 go in a 7-8.
Right.
I don't know if this is a hero power turn or just play everything. I guess you can wriggle instead, so you kill 2 7-8s instead of a 6-7 and a second 7-8.
You do want Gandling to survive, right? I'm just wondering if there's any merit to going to like ending with Voracious Reader after your Gandling has died off, just so that you can maybe have a higher chance of finding a Lucia to lock out the game next turn, but it's probably more important to just keep Gandling alive, isn't it?
I'm just unsure whether you'd rather weave in a ping or get another 4-4 here. Because I definitely think Divine Shield happens, right? And 2 minions, but it's the last minion the Kulturan or the ping that lets him get through a 6-7 with this 5-5 trading in.
Okay. I don't think it matters too much. As long as you get the actions in, you're doing the trades, keeping the Gandling alive, this is good enough.
Yeah, sure. Alright, it is 3 4-4s and the Gandling that Posesi needs to get through here.
Right, and so now there's no possibility of, I don't believe, playing Kurtrus on this turn. So I'm honestly already looking at just tempo Il'gynoth here, to be perfectly honest. He's used both Fell Scream Blasts, both Brutes have been used as well now. So his actual win condition is starting to get a little flimsy. He needs to start to consider, how are we getting there if I am able to lock down the board, which does kind of feel like Il'gynoth.
The only other alternative I see is digging for Immolation Aura to play with the Guild Trader, but the second he commits any card draw, he no longer has access to the Il'gynoth as a tempo play. I guess he could commit Rustrout Viper as a tradable, but I'd rather just play Spectral Sight and go in on that game plan. But I do like the look of Il'gynoth because it will survive, given that you can also just clear the Gandling with Hero Power and 1/1. And have another 7/8 on board. He's just sending it all to the dome. He's not even clearing the Gandling. Posesi's just going for the full race here. He says that the other play loses to Elucia too, so I'm not going to play around it. I'm just setting up the counter lethal. This play is the most Posesi thing I've seen all weekend.
Fair play. I mean, if you trade into the Il'gynoth, you're obviously just going to tank a clean 8 instantly, whilst also losing your entire board. I think che0nsu here honestly just needs to be brave, though. He's seen both Fell Scream Blasts. There's very little that this Il'gynoth can do. He's actually seen both Illidari studies as well, so there's no way to even discover extra spell damage to kill him that way. You just have to believe that you are winning this race and send all these students to the dome.
Yeah, I mean, if there is no other way of lifesteal from Posesi, then it is simply mathematically guaranteed that che0nsu can get there over 2 turns, barring the Immolation Aura. And it's strictly wrong to clear Il'gynoth if it's not able to push any more damage than the 8 it represents on its own. So che0nsu here is calling the bluff very intuitively so, I think.
Yeah, very wisely so. Whoa. Tusk Piercer, Il'gynoth is 10. There's no Void Touch Attendant in play, obviously, which we know would deal 11 with Il'gynoth because we tested this in our testing group.
He still needs Immolation Aura. That's the only out, I think, to survive from this point. He has no other removal, and Il'gynoth itself can only remove 4 from the board.
Oh, it was close. It was creative. It was a cool line to see and an interesting display of this matchup. But in the end, for che0nsu, protecting this Gandling, it just paid him back so many times over.
What a cool pan out.
Yeah.
The fact that Posesi even got this close against I don't even know how many 4/4s is very
right
stuff, but that one of Immolation Aura was too far down in the deck. The Il'gynoth going to sing its swan song here, but che0nsu gets the victory on the Shadow Priest. First loss for Posesi the entire weekend.
That's right. First game he's lost, which is kind of impressive in its own right for Posesi. Shows how dominant he has been. But very well played by che0nsu. I think he wasn't falling victim to any other nonsense apart from just believe in the Gandling. And he was rewarded because of it. We can talk about Posesi's chances to maybe have gone for Brutes earlier, because although he didn't look like he was in that dire of a situation, and I agree it was probably better to look for the one of Immolation Aura to try and pull him out of the game. The chances of whether or not you hit like the philosophy you can draw down to your Brutes as opposed to the one Immolation Aura is kind of tough to calculate. Maybe if he'd gone for it a turn earlier, it would have been enough stuff on board before all these 4/4s come into play. But overall, I think he took very reasonable lines throughout here.
He can look back on the turn where he sent this Brute face while playing Il'gynoth, because there was still an option to maybe kill Gandling while sending the Brute face and playing Il'gynoth, right?
Yeah.
As you trade in your Sigil Runner and the Hero Power. I'm not sure if that would have made a difference overall, because che0nsu still had like quite a lot of damage if Posesi had to face tank that 4. Very close game overall, and just goes to show that this Demon Hunter, like you said, has many different ways of approaching the 2 halves of its deck, and it's very much matchup dependent. But for now, che0nsu is moving on to this Druid, which we were hyping up at the beginning of the series as possibly being the pivotal deck for che0nsu here, because I feel like this deck should be favored on paper versus the OTK Demon Hunter. Yes, they can play Brutes for free after you go Celestial Alignment, but you can delay their purchase for so long. And on average, if you have Anaconda, do way more powerful things than 6/7s or 7/8s on the board, that I feel like it comes out in che0nsu's favor. But that depends on him finding the alignment quick enough in the first place.
That's right. And even before that, if you're playing a one immolation or a list, if they just play Glowfly and you don't have an answer, things can get very, very difficult right out of the gate. It's not purely in on this Celestial Alignment game plan that some of the other builds are. But first of all, it is going to be the Quest Delete Warlock for Posesi. A matchup that, once again, as you were laying out, I think is one of the best reasons to bring Druid right now, because you have all the upsides that you're expecting to see in the matchup, given that you can delay their quest completion with Celestial Alignment, put forward boards that are very, very difficult to answer with your Anaconda. And also, you don't have the downside of them playing 25 worth of stats the second you Celestial Alignment, because they have no threats in the deck.
Yep, the only threatening minion, I suppose, is Tamsin in some respect, and being able to copy cards, but in terms of stats, there's just nothing. Posesi, however, did put on a show of how to play this deck for pure control versus the survival version from Ger, which admittedly only worked because Ger got the Arcane Devourer from his Cenarion Ward, which was actually a bad outcome because it created a perfect shaped board for Hysteria. So che0nsu should be very aware of the type of board when he goes all in with the Anaconda. Don't just create one giant minion and a bunch of small ones, because Hysteria for 1 mana can deal with that really quickly, possibly even 0 mana, because Posesi can hit the weapon and maybe time that into an alignment turn so that once che0nsu goes for alignment, the weapon then goes off and Posesi's entire hand costs 0.
And so speaking of that, are you a Rod on Curve gamer? Do you believe that it should be saved for that exact situation with Celestial Alignment? Or is it just played on curve to increase the efficiency of your draw, get towards your own win condition a lot quicker?
I definitely think with this first one, given that Posesi has the backfire to follow up, just slam it, right? He doesn't have the read yet on there being alignment. He did see a 3 keep, so it's perhaps slightly likely. But you have 2 charges on the weapon, right? So you can at least get one done and save the other for the alignment, if you think that world is happening.
Okay, kind of interesting as well. Saving the backfire is specifically very good for post-alignment as well. So this is maybe a slight recognition of the situation he's in, that it could be very good to save that, because that can then make your entire hand cost 0 straight away, assuming you have the hand space. But at the same time, if we were talking about trying to rapidly get through to fatigue and complete your quest, being able to soul rend 7 minions right at the start of the game is going to get him down towards the end of his deck like that.
It really will, but I wonder if that is the fastest way to actually complete the quest. Like, you do get further to fatigue, but in order to get Tamsin at this point, he still needs to damage himself quite a bit, right? So what if you lose the Unstable Shadow Blasts? What if you lose your other backfire?
True.
He would have to go to actual fatigue and take it himself to complete the quest, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily fast enough.
I mean, it's pretty fast. He can go down to 11, and then with double Altar of Fire, he can have 5 cards left in deck, backfire tap the turn after. He's in fatigue at that point.
Yes, but then you have like no cards, right? You're working with your hand essentially, and then no counterplay to what che0nsu does in the meantime. So I feel like he still needs to hit some sort of balance, right? Of completing the quest while maintaining answers. You do need some cards in this deck, contrary to popular belief.
Snooze. But yeah, I think you are probably correct, as is Posesi, in being a lot more reasonable here. It does mean, however, that this is a pretty spicy board that we have left here. Could obviously be Anaconda with double Fungal Fortune still available. But I like that he's taking what is a reasonably powerful turn here by just going with the Arbor up. Once again, they're representing that they maybe don't have a Soul Rend, and if they don't, you just win the game. And if they do, you still have the very strong follow-up of an Anaconda turn.
Yeah, I mean, this hand is just begging for alignment from che0nsu, right? He has so much good follow-up afterward with the double draws and the Cenarion Wards for very cheap. Now Posesi is at this crossroads again, where he could take the big Soul Rend. He could maneuver it down to 5 cards if he would rather that, but I feel like if you are Soul Rending, you just take it for the maximum deletion because he is still able to draw cards at that point, right? And the Soul Rend is already committed into an actual resource from che0nsu, the Arbor Up.
So he could go trade, coil, and then with the double discount, he'd be able to go Soul Rend plus Rod as well to get the second one in play, which sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, alternatively, he could just backfire instead of the Rod and just give the discounts if he wants to, if it is all about just getting maximum cards in hand. But he's going to save the coil, which, again, it doesn't get him any further into fatigue than the Soul Rend, but it does replace the coil in hand with a card from his deck, which I don't know if that's better on average. This Malagos pickup, oh my god, where's the alignment?
Well, che0nsu has some very interesting news now because he saw Soul Rend used and second Soul Rend burned, which means any wideboard game plan becomes incredibly potent now. So all he needs to do is find the ability to generate that big board, which comes from, as we can see here, even if you don't go for the Celestial alignment, just being able to go for... it might have to be in 2 turns time because of the overload. But Anaconda, double germination, fungal, solar Cenarian, you just kind of win unless a massive hysteria can blow you out of the game. Yeah,
it's much less a massive hysteria rather than a massive minion that is weak to hysteria because all your minions are less massive, which is Arcane Devourer, which we found out yesterday. Posesi, this Hysteria is his best resource to try and deal with che0nsu's next board push, but Posesi knows he has time, right? This Malagos played was pretty much to find the alignment. che0nsu's okay with overloading into this turn because he still has mana to play alignment, and then he absolutely goes off the next turn. So Posesi has to time this correctly.
That is my correction.
Right? Reserving the charge on the weapon, which means that into alignment he will just be able to backfire and discount the entire hand.
No, because... Oh, no, yes, sorry. He'll have to overdraw a card, but sorry, yeah, you're absolutely right. He will still draw enough cards to get the discount done.
It took me so long to realize that you can see how far along the weapon is by the little animation at the top. I didn't know that was a thing. Like every other card, it says like 1 left in parentheses.
Yeah, true.
Like that. But this has got to be Onsta alignment, right?
Onsta, yeah.
Like he could Lunar first, get rid of both minions with a trade.
Yeah, so the positives are twofold as I see it. It's obviously you can have an incredibly powerful turn yourself, and you're denying their Tamsin from coming down for quite a while. The downsides are, of course, as you said, there's weapon in play. They can reduce their entire hand with the backfire and very possibly delete your deck with like Altar of Fires as well. I do think the positives outweigh the negatives, and it should end up being a Celestial alignment. But che0nsu clearly has something else on his mind because he's just holding back yet again, saying, you know what, even without alignment, I don't need to mess about with that. My next play will be strong enough to just win the game.
Fair enough. With two Soul Rend use, the Glowfly does get a lot of work done. I don't think you normally have the license to play around or like delay the Tamsin like this, because the longer you wait, what if Posesi had just saved double Unstable Shadow Blast in hand, right? That's Tamsin in hand right now. And that means that che0nsu's alignment would then allow Posesi to just play Tamsin and very likely win the game the next turn by playing all his draw cards for free or for 1 mana. But because there is both Soul Rends used, che0nsu is willing to take that possibility, knowing that he's threatening Posesi from being able to just go for Tamsin all willy-nilly here.
So now he is trying to get the Tamsin in hand. I think he's digging for Raised Dead. Raised Dead or Unstable Shadow Blast, both of which, or actually all 3 effects which would complete the complete Tamsin are in deck. It's Raised Dead, Shadow Blast, and Backfire. So that was a very unfortunate half of his deck to draw off of the Backfire, because obviously if he doesn't complete the quest on this turn, it's very possible that an alignment will come down and put a swift end to that anyway.
worried about this rope because he technically could get another draw with the Mortal Coil here, but it looks like Posesi is just taking the turn off to clear the board, which is a huge win for che0nsu because this is prior to Blightborn Tamsin. He gets the alignment down at like the best possible juncture. Yes, Posesi still has one charge of the weapon and the hand will cost 0 after alignment, but this hand is doing nothing if Blightborn Tamsin cannot get down. Posesi's still gonna take that fatigue.
I mean, I still think it should probably have been alignment last turn, just to make it that much harder to play Tamsin, because now, like you said, you really want to play the Celestial alignment, but the other play is putting a million of stats on board and saying you have to have an incredibly powerful Hysteria to respond, which is a reasonable argument to make. I think especially with the fact that you're going to play 2, maybe even more Cenarian wards as well because of the solar eclipses. It's very possibly worth, or it's almost impossible that you will die to Tamsin on the following turn. So it is a really complicated setup, to be fair, for che0nsu.
Is it impossible? Like, if, okay, the weapon goes off, say Posesi has get Tamsin just for 5 mana, complete quest. Like, what if there's all of the draw effects left, right? There's still a backfire, did you say?
Yeah, that's true. I guess actually, especially if you have like Raise Dead, Tamsin, double Hand of Gul'dan or something silly like that. Like, there's a... I don't know if you necessarily have enough mana to pull all of that off with the big Tamsin as well. But fair enough, there is a lot of funky stuff you can pull off.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a way to mathematically calculate that as 100% safe for che0nsu if he just gone for Anaconda. And there's the risk that you brick on the Solars.
Yeah.
And then the Hysteria actually does quite a lot. And Posesi gets his own Blightborn in the meantime. So I definitely prefer the alignment this turn. And it means that Posesi is 4 turns away from playing Tamsin Blightborn. No need to take the risk. He's just so safe, che0nsu, from this point.
So is teaching you.
Okay. Pretty underwhelming 8 drops so far, but you can gain more mana here in order to play the rest of your deck. You could probably just end on Celestial alignment as well, so that the hand costs back to costing all 1, which is pretty unfortunate for them, and I think does mean, again, unless it's a just Hysteria to clear the board, which it currently does not look like it's going to be anywhere close, Posesi does just lose here.
But the Hysteria can allow him to survive potentially, which makes me wonder, this isn't actually an all-in push from che0nsu, right? I do think he can get away with Arbor up, but I don't think he was supposed to commit. Oh, okay, he is going all in. I thought he was like not germinating earlier or not playing the other Sumerian ward earlier to be stronger against Hysteria, but now I see these are Proto Drakes, so Hysteria does not very much at all.
Yeah, it does diddly squat, and as we can see, I imagine ending on the alignment, very nicely done. That's a wrap. No weapon, no chance of Hysteria getting there. The Druid finally doing what it's supposed to do.
Nicely done from che0nsu. I still think maybe that alignment was 1 turn too late. It was a bit scary if Posesi managed to complete quest that turn, and I think it was pretty likely, especially with all the discounts he had gotten. 0 to 8 in 1 turn, super doable for this handlock, and getting the Blightborn Tamsin in hand as a potential response to the alignment turn. Maybe che0nsu wasn't dead quite right away because he still also just gains armor the next turn, but I don't know if it was worth taking the risk.
Yeah, it was really interesting because on that penultimate turn, Glory drew 3 out of the 6 cards in his deck. As I said, 3 of them completed quest, the other 3 didn't. He drew all 3 that didn't. Had he drawn Raise Dead, he could have just dumped double Altar of Fire afterwards to make hand space, go Raise Dead, get Tamsin in hand. Even if you can't play it on that turn, it costs 1, and with the proc of the weapon the turn after as well, I don't know if it was lethal necessarily, but it was a lot of damage with the Hand of Gul'dan, the tap as well, and maybe he could have the turn afterwards because then che0nsu would still have to set up, then got lethal afterwards as well. It was a close one, and I think for Posesi he did get a little unlucky with how that sequenced at the end.
I'd agree. But for che0nsu, even though it felt like an unnecessary risk towards the end. We saw the power of the Glowfly as well because it was just threatening Arbor Up lethal into Posesi, which che0nsu already knew. Posesi had used both this, or rather burned one Soul Rend and used the other, right? So it was actually very inconvenient for Posesi to deal with that. Again, not sure if having that additional layer of threats was worth postponing the alignment and giving a potential Tamsin, but Posesi did not really fall for, but he respected the bluff there at the end by getting rid of the Glowflies rather than turbo completing Tamsin, because he still actually had the possibility of coiling his tour guide to get one of those last 3 quest completing cards, but instead chose to use his mana to be safe against Arbor Up.
Indeed, which means that Posesi, after having been in the opposite situation at this point in this series the last couple of days, now needs to get a reverse sweep against the handlock for che0nsu. Taking a look at the list here. I suppose taking a look at Posesi's Garrote Rogue first. Very standard stuff. But for che0nsu, he's gone with the kind of hybrid of the hybrid Warlock. He's got he's got a Hand of Gul'dan in there, but he's also got Flesh Giants and Barons, but he's cut the Gnolls in order to make room for that extra card draw, which, you know, I was talking about the fact that it maybe gives him a better chance against the Delete version yesterday, but I think I was pretty swiftly assuaged of that notion, because it did just still feel like his list can't draw quickly enough to keep up with the full-on Delete list.
Yeah, it does feel like it to a certain extent, and I'm super curious to see how che0nsu will approach this matchup, because I think out of all our Garrote Rogue players and games that we've seen in APAC, Posesi has looked the most chill out of everyone on this very, very stressful deck. He's just making it look easy when the deck is anything but. And this matchup is definitely not an easy one. In the beginning, a lot of people thought, oh, this is relatively slow, the openers from Warlock, and as Rogue, I can take advantage of that, just use all those early turns to draw cards. But as the Warlocks quickly realized, they can then just spend their early turns not... Okay, the little gesture from che0nsu at finding the weapon is very adorable, but as the Warlocks realized that they can spend their early turns drawing, completing quests, don't play Flesh Giant for 5 mana, your opponent can deal with that very, very easily. Get them all down to 0 mana. Play them together with a 6/6 and a Cult Neophyte. That is the 1-2 punch versus Rogue. You can very much just set up a 1-turn lethal on board if you can get the Giants down altogether.
Exactly right. It's a little bit of a game of chicken, and you do need to be making sure that you're moving on with your Flesh Giant reduction at a pretty reasonable clip, because as you said, you do want to condense all your threats into 1 turn with a Neophyte. But if you do that 1 turn too late, then of course you just end up dead. So it is about trying to get there as soon as possible, especially when Posesi racks himself up a very juicy looking hand indeed. But che0nsu, with backfire off the top as well, gets himself his own very powerful hand.
I mean, the mana is just a little bit inconvenient here. If he had gotten a tour guide, that would have been the nuts, right?
Yeah.
But he's just going to hold on to the mana feeder and the Neophyte. Holding on to Neophyte to protect Giants. He doesn't quite have a raise dead at the moment, I agree with. Posesi, however, with the double swindle opener, gets the amazing discounts here. Gonna step the Octobot. That's his signature move here. And probably move on with a field contact turn next turn, and then discount that hand with this 0-cost Octobot.
I kind of liked going Wand Thief first of all there before the discount, just because I think you have so much fuel for this field contact anyway. I'd rather reduce a spell, because it could be like Mana Biscuit, and then you just get an extra mana as well on the following turn. But it's a minor point, and it's definitely not strictly wrong at all.
Yeah, I kind of prefer this line from Posesi, honestly, because there are good mage spells, but for the most part, if you're doing your game plan right and efficiently, the spells are a formality. You would rather have the battle cry to get through to the bottom of your deck. You might not even need the spells in the long run. First Neophyte comes down for che0nsu so as not to overdraw, and he does have a raise dead now, so decent chance of getting it back if ever. And now Posesi gonna start going off, it looks like, with Wand Thief first? That's how little he cares about the spell jar.
Okay, yeah, just trying to make sure he doesn't run out of hand space. I guess we're just wondering if this is going to be an Octobot turn, and if it is, he's at the very least drawing a whole bunch of cards first so as to discount other cards from his deck, which is, of course, very smart.
That's exactly the order to go about it. He can Brain Freeze, Octobot, and then Pen Flinger ending the turn. But it's not actually discounting that many great things. Like, it's discounting a card draw card, which is the Shroud of Concealment, which is not necessarily improving the field contact. So he's discounting for Secret Passage and just going with that this turn.
Yeah.
So 6 cards, original hand, Penflinger coming back. We have to be aware of this because there's still a field contact on board. But Posesi's line, I think, was just trying his best to find a field contact after the fact. But because he didn't find it in that last turn, is going Secret Passage.
Yeah, just a neophyte at the end, though, is a very nice way to close out the turn. Makes it a little bit more awkward, potentially, for che0nsu to effectively answer. As we can see, though, there are... Well, there's a very, very easy clear in just the Soul Rend, of course. But there may actually just be a cleaner answer. I wonder if you don't even have to resort to that, because honestly, with all of the threats still being in che0nsu's deck, I don't actually like burning cards from his deck at this point.
Close. The Rod is super tempting because he gets a nice coil here as well.
Yeah.
And a Raised Dead, which guarantees get Neophyte and Panthera, right?
Agreed.
Coil, and then he can touch and tap, and then, oh, okay, Tour Guide tap.
It's nice.
See what he gets, probably dump a card and then go Panthera again. Just turbo through the deck.
Yeah.
Find the Giants, set up for the big turn with the Neophytes later. Never mind, it's going Soul Rend, it looks like.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I don't begrudge him this, but like, Raised Dead's gone. There's a Neophyte. There's a Scavenger. There's a Giant.
Oh no!
Like,
okay, but one Giant.
Big cards to lose.
That's awful, honestly. He does get one Giant, but without the other Raised Dead, that's kind of it. Like, I guess there's still a 6/6 in the deck. So his best possible turn, next turn, is Giant 6/6 Neophyte. And I guess with a Battle Master, you can still represent the counter lethal. But in the meantime, Posesi, if he's not dead next turn, is certainly winning the game because he does have Shroud this turn to potentially pick up the other field contact.
Yeah, I mean, there can't be that many cards actually left in his deck at this point either. Oh, that many minions. I suppose it's still far from guaranteed to hit the field contact, but it's just further thinning his deck even if he doesn't get it.
Kazakus.
Okay.
Is that a bait? Because he could be thinking it's the most important thing is pick up field contact next turn, so he could just go like dump Brain Freeze and then Secret Passage to dump more cards to give himself the best chance of finding contact. But he is going Kazakus here. I don't even know what cost, honestly.
I think probably just one, yeah.
But
he got
this is
Poison deal 3 if he wanted as well.
Okay, that's huge, right? If he gets a Golem that can effectively delay threats from che0nsu, that's essentially buying one more turn towards contact as well.
Yeah, that's big. Okay, so here it is, the reduction in cost, and ooh, that is a spicy top deck, because now he can actually go Panthera, or basically he can get another proc of the Rod, is what I'm leading up to here. Like, he can go Giant, like maybe even Touch of the Nathrazim, his Giant, just because it costs 0.
I mean, I'm interested in drawing the rest of the deck because it contains the Baron Scavenger.
Exactly.
Right? You want all the threats at once with a Neophyte. We laid this out at the beginning. So he can just play the 3 minions now and the Backfire, right? And guaranteed get to the Scavenger. He will like fatigue a little bit towards the end, but it's all right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if he can cheat out like extra mana by discounting the Neophyte as well, but I guess that's not strictly necessary because, of course, the Baron Scavenger will cost 0, so he should be very, very safe as long as he gets this done.
Oh, no time though. It looks like he's not going Backfire.
Really? Wow.
No. Did he go Bristle? Oh wait, he did go Backfire. Wait, oh no! Then he's not able to play the 6/6. That's a big difference.
He just roped. Oh, che0nsu, my man, that's not good enough. Come on.
Really not. This is so easy for Posesi to deal with. Big deal if he doesn't have contact. It's like trade Kazakus, play, I guess, Penflinger, and then Brain Freeze the other thing. You don't have to start Golem, right?
No, but I...
Just gonna brain freeze the giant.
Yeah, little interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought he would like pen flinger to get the combo on brain freeze the other minion, and then snipe the giant with the golem, and you can
Agreed.
still play secret passage. You have like 1 mana less because you played the pen flinger, but I don't know.
I mean, that's a pretty big deal because he can't go contact step, which is a pretty reasonable outcome, right? With one of
fair.
each and only 8 cards left in deck. So I think that's probably why he's going for this line and actually saying, without a Battlegrounds Battle Master in your deck, it doesn't matter if you can punch me with the giant.
Fair enough. I guess he's just all in on finding the field
Oi,
contact.
oi,
But
oi.
wait, how many cards did he have in the original hand? I'm worried.
I think, and if he dumps, the dumping the prep doesn't matter, of course, right? He's just getting rid of his deck, which I don't even know if I agree with necessarily, because you need to actually play the other Garrot as well. It looks like he's going to be at 10 cards in hand with a Garrot still in deck. It's a 1 in 3. He's burning Shadow Step, Octobot, or Garrot. 3 incredibly important cards.
Oh no. Okay, it's not all lost yet, right? Okay. Let's go through each world, right? One world, you burn the Garrot, you still have access to Shadow Step, so that's +3 spell damage on 1 Garrot, right? Which is 20. That's not lethal if che0nsu just heals. Oh my god. This is a disaster. I think Okay. But burning Garrot is worst case scenario. Let's say you burn a Shadow Step. You're still fine, right?
You're
because
fine.
you
You
have
just
2
have the
merchants.
combo. Yeah.
But do you have the mana by then? Because the Garrot is full cost. And I mean, I think the only out is if you burn Shadow Step, keep Garrot and Octobot. Is he just dead, by the way? I didn't notice.
Oh, what? He's just dead before
Oh my god.
What? Oops. Imagine any of that battering. Perfect play from Posesi, but it doesn't matter anyway. che0nsu goes through 3-0 while we're completely distracted, focusing on the wrong thing like a couple of noobs. He's just won the game.
God, apologies. I tunnel vision. It's the first time I've seen Posesi do anything like potentially
Impressive.
game losing on the Garrot Rogue, but it's also not relevant to the topic at hand apparently, because che0nsu just had the Tamsin into a backfire saved. I didn't even know that he had that much damage, but the giant sticking around was enough to compound the fatigue damage he would get, which again is something we can ask about Posesi, because he did have the ability to kill giant. Yes, you talked about how the mana was important to potentially play field contact step, but was that the biggest issue here? I don't know.
What a disaster of an end on both sides. Like, I mean, obviously well done che0nsu for getting the win. Like, that's great. You know, it's I'm very glad that he's going through to the finals. This is like the most exciting finals we could have, with both Alan and che0nsu in last place at the start of this week going through to the finals. But to miss out on playing the 6-6 the previous turn, then Posesi overdrawing a card, allowing the 8-8 to attack him, like everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong for these two players. That was a disaster of an end.
I mean, yeah, it certainly felt like it more so for Posesi than che0nsu, because I do agree there was no reason for che0nsu to not play the backfire by that point, and so there was no reason to not play the 6-6. Very likely could have just set himself